Welcome back to New Rockstars. I'm Erik Voss, and this is a breakdown of Star Wars: The Skeleton Crew Episode 7. We're gonna be in so much trouble. Let's break down all the Easter eggs and details you missed in this episode. And yes, I am wearing a Neil-inspired I just want to go home shirt because I, like Neil, always want to just pay the tab early and go home. And you can get one of these from our merch store, nerdriot.shop, as a great way to support New Rockstars. And if you do, I will never say Claimsies on being your best friend. As always, we open with a lineup of metallic heads, R2-D2, then Captain Silvo, who once again dons his helmet in this episode, then an RX series droid, C-3PO, Darth Vader, Anakin Skywalker in his pod racer helmet, who I think we have been seeing every episode, not just as a shout out to little kids in Star Wars who say things like wizard, but as a reminder of what this kid became, because I think it led directly to what Jod is now. And I'll get to that at the end of this breakdown, but we also see an Attin safety droids, a Mandalorian helmet, and we end with the poor one-eyed SM-33 lit in blue, the lightsaber glow that decapitates him this episode. Oh. We open in the force of Attin, looking upward at the nebular cloud that keeps his planet hidden and will be penetrated this episode. Crawling down a tree trunk is a reptile referred to as a tree sucker by KB's parents in a bit, Mari and Gari. Oh, they rhyme. These parents come together to load a comms buoy with their message to their kids, and they require the access code transmitter from Numa, Neil's mother. She looks out at the tree line.
I have a
She was about to say the iconic Star Wars line, I have a bad feeling about this.
I have a very bad feeling about this. I have a bad feeling about this.
I've got a bad feeling about this.
Oh, I have a bad feeling about this.
I have a bad feeling about this.
And this show kind of does a version of it with we're gonna be in so much trouble. What follows is a thrilling annexation of Puerto Rico style football play among these 5 parents who will be my first round draft picks for the Intramural League, starting with Numa, who picks up the buoy and turns to run despite her species having shorter legs than the others. Numa is instantly stunned with the same blue glowing ring that was used on Leia in A New Hope. So Attin has security tech from the outside galaxy, which is interesting. We saw a similar stunning device used as far back as the Acolyte, which is at the end of the High Republic. So we know stun technology existed during that time. In this episode, Jod suggests that Attin has been hidden for hundreds of years, and hundreds would date the planet back to the era of the High Republic, not the Old Republic as it was known in Knights of the Old Republic, because the official Old Republic would have been like thousands of years in the past. But the lightsaber that Wim and Jod recovered from Tak Renaud's treasure room seems to be from the High Republic era based on its gold and silver plating. When Numa is stunned, KB's mom, Marie, assumes she'll be fine and they all keep running, but by the time the buoy gets to Fara, the safety droids know her by name and she releases it like a baby Moses up to the sky. The freshly molted Onyx Cinder zips through hyperspace. Fern and Neil play with a hovering ball toy that makes similar sounds to the Imperial probe droid. And Darth Maul's probe droids. Actually, this ball is part of the Slapball game that was referenced back in episode 4.
But we do play this one game called Slapball. You know, like the... I'm one of the best players.
Wim bemoans that upon their return to Attin, nothing will have changed. He won't have achieved the grand adventure that he sought, and he still has to take assessment, which is the test that he was late for in episode 1, which would determine their future jobs. Brutus's pirate frigate arrives at Attin, and from the outside, it looks like a stormy green gas giant with nowhere to land. I just love this idea that part of what kept Attin hidden is that from the outside, it looks like just a gas planet with no civilization or occupiable land on it, as opposed to just what would be a nebulous cloud that might have something on the other side of it and thus would be worth exploring. Like no one would think, hey, let's land on Jupiter. On Chelt's computer screen, the Orbesh translates to warning, so it's probably detecting the toxins of the maelstrom that Brutus referred to. Brutus is ready to send Jod out the airlock, but Jod insists that the whole planet is merely camouflaged. He says Tak Renaud was here, and our researcher Noah had a really great theory about the first name of Tak. Like last week I said that since Renaud is reversed Donner, as in Richard Donner, Tak in reverse is cat, so maybe it's like a Donner cut thing. But Noah countered that it might be a reference to Kathleen Kennedy, the longtime George Lucas and Steven Spielberg collaborator and now president of Lucasfilm, who unfortunately I think too many Star Wars consumers completely misunderstand the importance of to this industry. The fact that Renaud described Attin as hidden inside an endless storm reminds me of Skull Island in the King Kong lore, a mythical island of treasure forever surrounded by an unending storm. Brutus sends out the Quarren Glerb as a test pilot. Remember, Glerb is a Quarren to whom Jod promised a whole ocean for his glowweed plantation in his big speech last episode, and we see how one of his tentacles is severed, as most of these pirates are missing a limb or a stalk or a chunk of some kind. His helmet has actually been customized for a Quarren to fit their unique head shape inside of, and it has an orange visor similar to the Rebel Alliance helmets that the Red Squadron wore in A New Hope. The helmet actually has insignia that kind of looks like the English letters of JJ, maybe a reference to JJ Abrams. This fighter is a pirate snub fighter. This is the same type of fighter that we saw Vane and the rest of Gorian Shard's pirates flying in The Mandalorian. Glerb's call sign is Ravager 1. Now, Ravager is just a common name for any kind of pirate or smuggler, but we are reminded once again of the Ravager space pirates from the MCU. Thank you to BetterHelp for sponsoring this video. Whenever the calendar ticks over to a new year, it's hard not to reflect on where you are now versus where you were a year ago. Is your situation better? Is it worse? Is it the same? And more importantly, how do you feel about that? But expectations to make immediate dramatic life changes in 2025 can be overwhelming. Talking to a therapist on BetterHelp can help you break down vague feelings of being behind into specific addressable concerns and develop tools to measure progress on your own terms. Starting with BetterHelp is as easy as ordering gifts on Amazon. Just fill out a questionnaire and you will match with a therapist in as little as a couple days. If the first therapist doesn't feel like the right fit, you can easily switch to another one until you find someone you resonate with. BetterHelp also provides a journal for personal reflection, plus group sessions on a variety of topics that are available every day. Users love BetterHelp. They have over 7,000 reviews and a 4.5 rating on Trustpilot, and it's obvious why. BetterHelp makes sure therapists on their platform are well qualified. If you have any questions, their customer support team is there to help as well. Start fresh any day of the year with BetterHelp. Click the link in the description or go to betterhelp.com/newrockstars and get 10% off your first month of therapy. Now, the other pirates have a pretty impressive holo display of Glerb's fighter, plus biometric scans of his health, and all three flatline when the satellites fry his ship. The Orbesh translates to from Jod and Brutus's eye line because the text is reversed, signal lost. Just before Jod is nearly blasted out the airlock, Chelt speaks up to alert a new ship is coming into hyperspace, and it's Chelt who frees Jod from the airlock cell in a bit. So of all these pirates, she's the one most loyal to the old boss. The pirates all admire the Onyx Cinder's vintage design, and Jod realizes that for the Onyx Cinder to have landed on the planet and for it to have made it off the planet and to add Akron, it must have some kind of skeleton key to bypass the defensive grid. The pirate frigate uses a tractor beam to reverse the Onyx Cinder onto their hangar. Brutus walks up, but the kids use the crane arm to grab him. This is one of many times they've used this crane arm throughout this season, and now it's finally paying off. Jod uses Brutus's musket-inspired blaster to ruthlessly murder this unarmed first mate, and once again, this thing has a great flintlock sound effect that just really gives it some deadly texture. Jod says,
Brutus was a stinking, backstabbing mutineer.
a character named Brutus stabbing one in the back, you say? The brashness of Jod taking out his enemy in front of everyone, perhaps compared to Brutus dragging his feet with Jod with the airlock, I think is what gets this whole crew back on his side. And we learn that the Grand with the eye patch is named Pax. Jod puts back on his Captain Silvo helmet and orders the mechanism that allows the barrier bypass to be stripped and added to the full frigate, preparing for war to use his big ship's firepower to bomb the Mint on the Attin surface. He later learns that he doesn't need that, of course. The Supervisor just assumes that the sleeker Onyx Cinder is the Republic Emissary, and he can get it just by, once again, faking it till he makes it. The Onyx Cinder picks up the buoy, and on the screen, we see some more Orbesh. On the top left, Initiate, and DF below in red, Hyperdrive. In the middle, Incoming Encryption, and on the top right, Warp Drive. Now, we should know that the communication buoy was a device that so far exclusively appeared in the High Republic era from the High Republic Cataclysm. So I think that's a strong indicator that that's where this colony of Attin originated. I think they were used before there were stronger communication technology that could send messages out super long distances. In the parents' recorded message, Fara's initial pose recalls Princess Leia's "Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi" message from A New Hope. You do hear a bit of Carrie Condon's Irish accent coming through on her more concerned lines, and I kind of feel like no matter how good of an actor you are, when you channel your more authentic emotions, you end up just going back to how you were as a kid or how your parents would express concern to you, and just notes of that voice will always come out. And whenever I hear this, I think it's really sweet and authentic, and I love it. As Pax barks Huttese at them, you can hear behind them that KB's parents, Mari and Gari, tell her, "Get your friends to help keep you dry." And while KB's friends got her wet last episode, Wim personally helped her change out the microfuse. Numa tells Neil that his brother just lost a tooth. Beside her stands Neil's father, Sol, and this swole soul looks pissed. Maybe it's just because the adult males of the species have scary tusks, but either way, a very stern papa here who is clearly dragged in from his man cave with the beer sign in his garage to record this recording and promised to do his best not to look like he's gonna kill Ralphie. Fara says the kids need to find a Republic Republic emissary, who she and Wendell say are an official entrusted to know the secret location of Attin. Based on the way the safety droids escort Jod later, thinking he's the emissary, it kind of looks like the emissary is just a special courier for the New Republic to transfer Old Republic dataries from the Mint to control the rate of inflation in the galaxy. It's also possible that some corrupt person has been posing as a Republic emissary all this time and flying into Attin all this time to claim this money for whatever they wanted. That's why I'm still assuming all this dough is going to, in some way, fund the rise of the First Order and or Thrawn and Pelion's Shadow Council. Like, anybody could be taking advantage of Attin right now. Wendell says that the kids weren't supposed to know about this arrangement until they graduate, suggesting a cultish rite of passage for Attin residents that only after years of programming are they beaten down enough to not question how siloed their planet's function really is. Wim tries to attack Jod pathetically, and SM-33 points out that Jod technically cannot be captain of the Onyx Cinder in this moment because he's captain of the bigger frigate, and per the pirate code, you can only claim to be captain of one ship at a time. So Wim tries to call Claimsies, but Jod silences him, and Fern calls unclaimsies on Jod's claim, which SM-33 chews on for a second before deciding, yeah, okay, yes, this is completely childish, but it seems like a lot of the pirate code is childish. It's designed for simpler, immature, often drunken minds of pirates to quickly process and agree to. Whereas at the beginning of the season, Fern claimed the ship for girls only. Now she claims it's for kids only, so she has grown. And I love this shot.
I'm afraid it doesn't work like that.
SM-33's fist comes out of nowhere and clocks Jod, chipping off a piece of his helmet. The kids take the Onyx Cinder down through the barrier, passing satellites that now emit lightning. These could be modified or proto-versions of the Empire's Climate Disruption Array, which was a network of satellites that could create terrible storms on planets below, whereas these make storms around a planet, and this all could have been part of the Emperor's Operation Cinder protocol after he died in Return of the Jedi. SM-33 reveals that Captain Renaud's genius was stealing one of the Mint's old ships so that he could safely fly it back through. So, question answered, the Onyx Cinder was originally a Republic emissary ship connected to Attin that Renaud stole and used to get onto Attin, and over the years upgraded it with pirate armor and weaponry. Again, I'm just wondering whether the emissary that Attin had been welcoming in these years since might have just been someone else who was doing the same thing and using that money to fund very dark things. They pass a particular satellite with angry red paneling that turns into green light green when the Onyx Cinder passes, and finally the small lovely home planet of Attin is revealed. A sun now shines on their faces, making me think for a second that maybe an artificial light source might have also been contained around this gas giant, but before I realize it's a distant sun that's cutting through this gas giant. And not to overthink the astrogeology here, but were all 9 of the Old Republic jewel planets that share this unique state of being tiny planets hidden within gas giants with perfect surface climates and perfect distances from nearby suns affected by the layer of orbiting nebular gases? Like, they found 9 of these, or did they create 9 of these? The autopilot locks them into a landing sequence.
Just like on Hannah's planet.
Aw, Neil still thinks of Akron as a place where my new honey is. Fern says the title of the episode.
My mom totally lied on that call. We're gonna be in so much trouble.
And she's right, but only for Jod reasons. He finally ignites his lightsaber on screen, and this is the first time I've been afraid of Blue Kyber in Star Wars since this moment.
Master Skywalker, there are too many of them. What are we going to do?
Maybe it's because Jod might have been one of those younglings. We don't get that backstory in this episode, but more thoughts at the end of the video. Poor SM-33 gets decapitated, and that bilge rat, who I still think is controlling everything in the show, crawls out and hisses. Jod tries to radio to the others on the frigate, but the barrier just jams a signal on the screen. The Orbesh translates to terminal. Jod starts to snap at the kids.
Your incessant, unending jabba, 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 honestly, it is unbearable.
The way Jude Law says Jabba sounds like Jabba the Hutt, which is also, according to certain stormtroopers during the Rebels era, this kid.
And what would your name be, young man?
Jabba the Hutt.
And you are?
Jabba the Hutt.
Jod tells them this.
You're all weak, sheltered, spoilt children.
Again, I think he might be thinking about his own traumatic escape from Order 66. Jod threatens all their families, saying piece by piece, recalling SM-33's threat back in the previous episode. We get a classic Star Wars wipe transition on the opening door to Fara's office. The engraved art behind the safety droid shows a figure with both hands raised to hold up a banner, while other female figures kneel to the right and left. The audio description describes this as, quote, a mural mythologizing the Mint with robed figures. So, like to keep the workers of Attin focused on the work, they need to make this process of mining and minting gold dataries feel like a sacred task since like the days of the Old Republic. Even though a Marxist view would say the very existence of capital is an artificial invention used to oppress workers and control the levers of production. But listen to me reading from Nemik's manifesto from Andor. And finally, we hear the voice of the mysterious supervisor.
What was that?
Citizens of Attin, this is the Supervisor speaking. An emissary is arriving for a shipment. All non-essential work is suspended.
So the supervisor is voiced by British comedian Stephen Fry, who has appeared in a number of things, but this particular take of his voice reminds me of his voiceover for Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Like there's some kind of darkness to it.
Though the planet Earth, the Islington Flat, and telephone have all now been demolished, Ford and Arthur were in fact rescued.
Like the basketball court at the X-Mansion and X-Men, the ground splits apart to raise a launch pad to accept what they assume is a Republic emissary ship because it's so last minute. These Attin picnickers have to flee. The safety droids go straight through their protocol to escort Jod directly to the Mint. And in this case, it benefits Jod, but it also deprives him of a certain amount of control over the situation. Fern had foreshadowed the existence of these mines in the first episode when she said that there was a mine underground.
The last kid who skipped assessment, the proctor took him down to a secret chamber under the school to make him work in the mines.
Again, all ghost stories and urban legends are based on truth. As they descend into the vaults, they look up at the opening, which now, from their point of view, looks somewhat like an imperial crest. A bad omen. They descend past this awesome, giant mechanical golden sphere that I assume is the Mint itself, like a High Republic era apparatus that mines and prints the gold. But visually, it very much recalls what we saw in Treasure Planet. Like, Evan has been saying since the beginning that this whole show is a Treasure Planet reference, and I think he's right. Jod wants to talk to the supervisor.
Better than dealing with a droid.
So again, I think the supervisor might just be a droid because that voice of Stephen Fry just sounded pre-recorded and automated. Then there's this great reveal shot as Jod enters the vault where we think it's just one stack of gold dataries, but the camera pivots to show like thousands of these stacks, and the droid says that there are over 1,000 of these vault rooms. Actually, the droid says specifically that there are 1,139 of them, which is one additional than 1,138 or 1138, which is a reference to George Lucas's THX 1138. Like Jod laughing as he climbed out of Renaud's treasure room covered in jewels last episode, he laughs giddily as he lets these Old Republic dataries pour over him, dipping his head in it like it's the fountain of youth. The kids reunite with parents, recalling the parents hugging the kids at the end of the Goonies. Then Jod steps up and ignites his blue saber right in front of Neil and Numa, again recalling this moment. We thought we were getting Jod's backstory in this episode, but now I assume it's coming in the finale, and again, I think he was one of those kids who saw that lightsaber ignite with the other younglings in the temple on the night of Order 66. This episode was directed by Lee Isaac Chung, who is an amazing director who directed an episode of The Mandalorian. He directed Minari, episodes of Beef, and most recently had a hit with Twisters. The lineup of directors they've got for the show, I think, is really the secret to its success. Hey, comment down below with your thoughts. If you've heard some rattling throughout this video, the Santa Ana winds are blowing so strong in LA right now, and it's created some disastrous fires. So please keep everyone in the LA area in your thoughts and prayers. And if we have any kind of production delays, it's probably related to that right now. Everyone who works at New Rockstars is, for now, safe, but we just appreciate your patience. And any way that you can help the affected people in LA, please do so. Follow me at EA Voss, subscribe to all 3 channels of the New Rockstars network for breakdowns and news coverage of everything you love. Thanks for watching, and take care of yourselves out there. Bye.